Football fans, welcome to an excerpt to the audio version of the Uncensored Arsenal YouTube live stream of Sunday, July 18th. I'm your host, Shatta, together with my usual partner, Blackburn George, the Ars blogger. Together, we have a conversation on Bukayo Saka and racism in English football. For a complete version of this broadcast, check out our YouTube channel and remember to smash that like button and subscribe. Stay tuned for more.
Football fans, gooners of the world, this is the Uncensored Arsenal live stream. One day late, hopefully not $1 short. And today it's only George, the ever reliable George, and myself. And we are not going to disappoint you. We are going to do something. We're going to comment on the issue of the week, I suspect. 1 week after England's defeat to Italy. And that massive outburst after the game when Saka missed his penalty, when Rashford and Sancho also missed their penalty, and there was a massive racist outburst. I think it's perhaps George, unfair of me to say it was a racist outburst. The first reaction I heard was an immediate sympathy, but then it turned into something like a racial issue. Am I correct in my review of the events of last week? Just the initial reaction.
I don't know. It's difficult because that might be the initial reaction that people in the media wanted to put over to you or to us. Yeah. But I just think, though, everybody felt sorry for him. When I say everybody, you're talking like 90, 95, 100, getting up towards 100% people felt sorry for him, had sympathy for him, understood that he was only 19 and he'd taken the kick and he deserved credit for that.
Yes.
And then a small number of people on Twitter, on social media, brought the race issue into it, and now then we're led to believe that it was a big thing,
yes.
and there's outpourings of sympathy because he'd been racially abused. I don't think it was that much. I mean, I'm not justifying it by any means. There shouldn't be any, but there will always be people prepared to racially abuse other people.
Yes.
And if you give them the limelight, if you say, oh, poor Saka, we need to give him a shirt with his name on it to show that we're supporting him. We need to write endless columns in all the newspapers about how we support him against this torrent of racial abuse. When in reality, it was just one or two people being dicks. So I think it's more what we're trying. They're doing what our government and the American government have been trying to do for a long time, and that's build a divide, cause a divide. Well, there's us good guys, and there's these bad guys over here.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden we should, and we're making them out to be as big a group as us. Well, they're not. They're just a few absolute wankers. But because we are giving them all this energy, they take off, and that'll encourage other people to do exactly the same thing because now they get in the limelight. And all they'll do is they'll adjust the language to make it that it's not quite illegal. You say, oh, we'll ban them if they use this word. So what they'll do is they'll go on to use this word instead.
Yes, George.
They can
as I call it, code words.
Yeah, they can still be racist.
Mm-hmm.
But they can hold their hands up and say, "Well, you didn't tell me I couldn't say that word." You know, you can't ban me for that. You can't
You're right.
send me to jail for this. But we all know what they're doing. We all know they're being racist.
Yes.
It's just to adjust the language. So I think what we're doing by shining the spotlight on it, these few sad individuals are empowered. And I don't think that's a good thing, because it'll just encourage those teetering on the brink of being a sad individual to go that way.
George, George, by the way, well, this is going to go out on both our blogs as a podcast, but we're doing this live, and I see two persons on watching us right now, and I hope that they will pose questions, and I hope they are subscribers, because we need subscribers in this kind of interactive media. That is just encouragement to the two viewers. Please post your comments. We welcome you, but understand we're not in here for the numbers per se. We are going to podcast this, and it's going to be of course, it's live streaming on YouTube as well as on Twitter. But George, I was reluctant to take on this issue because I thought it was just a lot of, Boris Johnson calls it gesturing. He's not your favorite person. Virtue signaling. But it's more than that, George. As you say, the politicians and the media are intent on dividing us. They're intent on dividing us, George, dividing us on race, dividing us on sex, male versus female, divide us on our sexual orientation, divide us on our nationality. And
religion.
Meanwhile, George, and I think you're quite sensitive to this, I saw an amazing statistic on American TV recently. The top 10%, 30, 40 years ago, only had like 20 or so percent of American wealth. But today they have over 60 odd percent. And I think that it earns clicks, it earns views, but they're doing nothing, George, to address the problem, the real issues. People have animosity to other races, but look at football, for instance. There are only 2 black coaches, I understand, in the entirety of the football league. There is absolutely no black referee in the doing top level refereeing. After Uriah Rennie, you remember him, George? He suffered all kinds of abuse for any mistake he made. And I think that any guy who aspired to be a referee, black guy, said, no, I can't deal with this. Perhaps, do you see where I'm going with this, George?
Yeah, well, what I see is that there is a divide, that there is a lot of racism in every country.
Yes.
Some are worse
George,
than others.
if I told you, I'm a black man, George, Afro-Caribbean, to America. And, George, you'd be surprised at some of the attitudes, I don't know if you're aware of it, that some of us black people have towards whites. And yet I told you that I think the relationship between blacks and whites are perhaps better than most other races. I may be wrong. Go ahead, George.
Yeah, that's a point that I was about to make, that there are racists.
Yes.
But every discussion, there's less and less nuance,
right,
and more black and white.
Yes.
And that's not being a pun. It's racism, white and black.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that simple. Like you say, in where I live, the racism is mainly against Asian people.
Yes, you told me about that. Not
black, Asians. Yes. And the Asian people don't like the white people. Not all of them. See how I'm starting to generalize as well?
Right, right.
What I'm saying is there's a large portion of Asians don't like white people. There's a large portion of white people don't like Asians. A large part of you go into Manchester, go to Chinatown. A lot of the Chinese people don't like white people. It's just everywhere you go in the world, there'll be a race of people, and they don't like another race of people. It'll be a different race. Right. You know, you go to Australia, for instance. It's very similar to where I'm led to believe from my sister who lives in Australia that it's the Asians that they don't like in Australia. It's not even the Aboriginal people. You know, the real Australians.
George, it is called the other. Now that's a concept. You know, we always love to hate the other, and some cultures are more insular than others, and you know that is just a part of human nature. And that is why I think trying to hype the racism is simply a way of it's not constructive. It's just a way to win clicks, a way to bring attention to the, you know, and it's not, like I say, it's not addressing the underlying problem. In football, the kneeling, does the kneeling help? I think the fact that more when I started watching English football, George, you know, going far way longer than most people realize. But let's say in the 70s, when there was a team with Laurie Cunningham and the Luther Bliss, I think they played for different teams. But Watford, they had 3 black players. It was a human. I started watching them. Now it's commonplace. People accept that if you're talented, you will be selected. When John Barnes went to Liverpool, he was the only black guy, you remember? And we in Jamaica started watching Liverpool. Now today, if a black guy goes to Liverpool, who cares? That's far more progress than we have ever seen. Go ahead, George. You want to say something?
Yeah, that's a point. When John Barnes started playing for Liverpool, all the Jamaican people started watching Liverpool. And why was that? Yeah. Because they like a Jamaican guy.
Right.
More than they like a white guy. It's as simple as that. Do you know what I'm saying here?
Right.
It's not.
Well, George, I love Rush. I like how Rush used to score goals, but Ian Rush. But you see what I mean, George? Go ahead.
I went to train martial arts in Japan.
Yes.
And I can tell you, the Japanese don't like anybody.
They're very insular culture.
Very insular. They didn't like the Chinese. They think they're subhuman. In the Second World War, they thought American soldiers were subhuman.
Yes.
And that's just the way it is.
Bombs on them. What the hell do you expect?
Well, yeah. But you think, why did they bomb them? You think the Japanese soldiers were eating American soldiers while they were still alive. Eating bits off them and keeping them alive to keep the meat fresh. You know, so there's terrible things went on all sides. But the point is that you say, oh, racism. Yes, there's racism. You've got to accept first that normally people like their own. They have there's a comfort in your own. And
correct.
What you have to do in society is to try and make your own that you naturally like more inclusive. Mm-hmm. And that's why you say, like, oh, there's areas like people tell you that London's very cosmopolitan and people of different races get on well together. In London, you know, there's not as much racism. This is what I'm told.
Yes.
And then you think, yeah, well, I'll tell you why that is. It's because now you're a Londoner and you don't like anybody outside London. You don't like these northern bastards.
Well spoken by a northerner.
No, that's what it is. They've now got a different little subculture. Their own is London.
Yes.
And they've accepted all the different races, but they still don't like somebody. And who is it? Somebody from outside of London. And
well, George, by the way, Phil Kennedy, our your great supporter, George. But a subscriber to this live stream, Phil, welcome. He says we are the ebony and ivory of Arsenal, Arsenal Twitter. But you know, Phil, I'm gonna tell you something, Phil. 15 years ago, I was on another blog, and from the I don't know if George was there before. I was there before him, and from the minute we started tweeting, George and I just found ourselves like kindred souls, and we when George left that blog, I followed him and supported him everything he do. And you know, Phil, and I'll tell the audience, the point is that in football, I found, and even in personal life, I've found no other more loyal friend than Blackburn George. Every venture that I undertake, he's there with me.
There has to be somebody.
I don't know. I find it very difficult to get in this division by race. We got to unite against our real enemies. I'm tempted to think that I'm tempted to call a name of a certain manager as our real enemy, George. But I won't say it outright. Yeah, I'll leave you to guess. But George, what do you think about that?
Joking apart, you think everybody's out. There's this a professional wokeism at the moment.
Yes, it is.
Everybody wanting to be seen to being woke and how good a person they are. And virtue signaling, that's what it is basically.
Yes.
And nobody's willing to accept.
I'm such an anti-racist.
Yeah. And you're either a racist or you're not now. There's no nuance at all. It's some guy with Doc Martens, a skinhead, and waving an England flag in one hand and a baseball bat in the other, chasing a black guy down the road.
Yes.
Is the same as the guy in the shop who looks twice at a black guy because he thinks he might be shoplifting. There's no.
But George,
I am
George, I'm very opposed. By the way, George, I know I'm interrupting you, but I am also equally opposed to these so-called call them. I'm really anti-racists in America who are burning down white stores, hurling racial invectives at white people, and then think that they're advancing the movement. George, like I told you guys in the chat, in our DM chat, I used to be a 1960s, late stage Black Power advocate because I was young. So I had a huge afro. I supported Tommy Green and Juan Carlos in the Black Power salute. I read every book by Stokely Carmichael, Huey Newton, the whole 9 yards, George. And then I got into this whole thing. Well, Martin Luther King is a punk, and all those guys from the Black Panthers are the real thing. George, I soon realized that trying to that is not carrying humanity very far. And I keep, I guess I'm repeating myself. We have common enemies. I mean, look at the state of football. Two black coaches right across the league. Absolutely no black referee. And if a black referee steps in the ring, he is assailed by racial invective if he gets a decision wrong. We need to move beyond that. And
this is the problem. This is the problem. We say we have to do that, and you've got all these outraged people. Let's say they all would be nodding their head saying, "Shotter, yeah, yep. I agree, yeah." What are they going to do about it? Fuck all. No. Absolutely fucking nothing. If there's nobody to listen to them saying how anti-racist they are, they won't give it a fucking thought. They're not really anti-racist. They just it's this new bandwagon that they can jump on.
Yeah.
Of course, that it's not. that's a broad brush I'm painting with. It's not everybody, of course, but it's nobody's actually doing anything about it because, and the biggest problem for me is that your average man, whatever race he is, whatever religion he is, whatever sexual orientation he or she has, is reluctant to admit that they have prejudice.
There you go.
They have some inbuilt prejudice. That they've been brought up in a way to think, and there's prejudice there. That nobody wants to admit it. I'm perfect. I'm anti-racist.
Yep.
I like gay people. You know, I don't mind what religion you are. You can be Muslim, you can be Christian. I love you just the same. Everybody's that guy when they're speaking on the internet, but none of them are that guy.
Right. They're hiding behind an avatar.
Of course they are, and the kid, they're trying to kid you, and probably kid themselves, saying, "Oh, I'm not racist." You know, I would like to go back to my childhood and say, at no point have I ever been racist. But I can't say that. I'm sure there'll be somebody who will be able to point and say, "Well, what about that you said?" I'd forgotten about it. Of course I've forgotten. I would probably have forgotten about it because it meant nothing at the time because that was just the way it was. You know, and nobody wants to admit that they have prejudice and they live their life that way. And all we can do, you can't do away with prejudice and racism. All you can do is every day educate more people and slowly move along that band nearer an equal society, nearer a fairer society, because you're never going to go. And that's the problem with governments and people who vote. Some fucker comes along and goes, "I'll fix this." It's something that's been going on for hundreds of years, and they'll go, "I'll fix that. Vote for me." And you think, "Oh, that's good. They're going to fix racism. Oh, that's good. They're going to fix hate crime. Oh, that's good. They're going to fix bullying on the internet."
Yeah.
No, they're fucking not. And we keep falling for it time and time again, believing that they can do something. Well, they can't. All they can do, all any of us can do, is edge people a little bit closer to being a better person. And the only way you can do that is by setting an example and not tolerating bad behavior, whatever it is about. You make it socially unacceptable, you know. And even if you go to your think, well, there's only 2 black managers, you should be saying to him, "Well, why have you not interviewed this guy?"
Yes.
You should be asking questions. Why? Why are we not doing this? Why didn't Chris Hughton get an application, get an interview?
There's a knock in the background. And hopefully, sorry, George, there's a knock in the background. I have to apologize to the listeners. Keep going, George.
Hopefully, as a society, as a world, you gradually move along to be in a better world. My problem is, this last 5 years in this country, we're moving backwards. We're getting worse.
Well, you know, George, that's the point. With all the wokeism and the
I mean, sorry, Cotter, we've made Europeans our enemy now. You know what I mean? We're fucking racist towards them now. We don't want them coming here. These Polacks and coming stealing our jobs. It's the same fucking thing. Different fucking race, same enemy, somebody else.
Well, George, I have my theory. I mean, you know, England out in the it's the Atlantic, correct? Right? You're out in the Atlantic. You have been you developed by warring with Europe, by separating yourself from Europe. And you developed a huge empire by being a sea power. So that's about, you know, George, 500 years of that. You know, people want to change that overnight. Anyway, George, I think we have beat this one to death. We are not politicians. Hopefully not. I try to keep politics out of the football, and you know how desperately I was like, I really do. I'm not sure I have my own, you know, people can as people can probably know, I have my strong ideas, but this is, I didn't make this a political platform. I have my reasons for not having a political platform. I think sports should unite, not divide. And I see a lot of this happening in sports, and I think it's not good for sports.
Well, I couldn't disagree more.
Yeah.
I couldn't disagree more.
You know what I mean. But
We
George,
celebrate.
people must have their political views. I'm not telling people not
shut it.
Go ahead.
I'm talking about sports.
Yes.
People celebrate divisions in sport. Look at you.
Political divisions, George. I know.
And you look at the internet on Arsenal Twitter.
Yes.
And you see these massive accounts, and all they do is slag off somebody else because he wears a different coloured shirt.
Oh yeah, George.
So that's okay. That's fine. Or you can hate all these Tottenham bastards. You can hate all these United people. That's good to have that division. What's the difference? That you can dislike someone for the colour of the shirt, but not for the colour of the skin. It doesn't make sense to me.
George,
doesn't make sense to me at all.
George, to bring this to Arsenal. I mean, one of the things that impressed me when I started supporting this club was it was multinational and it played the most beautiful football in the world, and it had a French manager who believed in playing football. And I thought this was a different club. But George, we'll discover that we are, Arsenal fans are just like the rest of fans. They started slagging Wenger as an old French cunt. Do you remember how they humiliated Eboué song because of their race? Do you remember the code message certain bloggers used to use at Adebayor that what his mother was? He was some bullshit. It was, and I was like, this club is no different. I mean, what we do, but Wenger kept me in the game when he said, I don't look at passports when I select my team. And I said, great, any great footballer from anywhere in the world can aspire to play for Arsenal. And that is what, and I'm not, I don't want to generalize, but I felt that this was a value that the fans supported. Much to my amazement, it was skin deep, George.
It was, of course. What the fans supported was that we were a good team and we were going unbeaten for a season.
Yes.
And if they were black players, that was fine. But I'm sure they would still have preferred if they were white players. Because that's the way it is. That's just the way it is. It's the way it was. I don't know. I know.
Well, George, you and I are not going to solve racism in
No, I mean, I know as much about politics and racism as I do about football. And you can write that on the back of a fucking postage stamp, really.
Yes.
So.
Well, I think it needs more than a postage stamp. You have a lot of ideas. I see you on Twitter, George. I follow you.
This concludes another edition of the Positively Uncensored Arsenal podcast. Show your appreciation of our podcast by subscribing and clicking the like button wherever you listen. This really helps in growing our support among honest and biased fans who recognize that Wenger's legacy is fundamental. Free-flowing attacking football by a club with integrity and class. Thanks for listening.